Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Lindsay Monow.
And I'm Patrick Franco, the yoga director at Yoga Renew.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about how you can start to build your in-class following at yoga studios and centers as you start stepping into your role as a yoga teacher. So Patrick, if you were to give a tip or a general just suggestion on how you can start to build your following as a yoga teacher, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
The most important thing that I found, and I did start teaching during a time where social media wasn't really prevalent, so I had to build up my following through in-person classes. And the one thing that I think carried me up until this day is being myself and introducing myself to new students, and remembering their name is the most important thing. Yeah.
That's a very good tip. I struggle with that a lot. I have to ask people like 4 times, like, what's your name again? Oh, you've been here before, right? Okay, that's a really great tip. So remember your student's name, introduce yourself to them at the beginning of class. I think that's also just a great general teaching tip, right? Like get to know the people, why they came to class. I remember I was talking to a yoga teacher at one point, and they kind of jokingly said that at the beginning of class, they would ask their students what they came to class for anyone had any like suggestions on body parts or anything they wanted to work on. And then the teacher would teach their normal sequence, but just point out at parts of the class like, oh, we're stretching the hamstrings now. And then the students would think like, oh, they like did this class just for me. So that's just a funny little tip there. But I think that's a really great piece of advice. Start to learn people's names.
Yeah. There's also a little follow-up on that too, is that when you introduce yourself in the beginning of class, what I used to do also is make sure that I would say their name again during the class and then on the way out of class. So really make that connection with that new student 3 times during one class. And I know Kate tells the story often that one of the reasons she came back to my class was because I remembered her name the next time she came to the studio.
Yeah, that's a really great piece of advice. I'm like taking notes for myself too. I'm like, oh, 3 times, okay. I would say one way to really build your following is to be consistent and at your classes and try not to sub out too much. I think, everyone has life and things that come up, but really be intentional about the classes that you take on, and knowing that every week if you commit to teaching a class at Sunday morning, be there every Sunday morning and try not to sub out your class, because building that consistency with your students really helps them feel like you're a safe and dependable person that they can trust to be there week after week for them. And that's going to really cultivate that community once you have a consistent following and show up week after week. So I think that would be another great tip of just try not to sub out your classes as much as possible, and don't commit or overcommit to things that you think you're going to have to skip out on week after week.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Lindsay, both as a teacher and as a studio owner previously. Being and showing up week after week for your students and for the studio is like an instant way in which you'll build your following, because week after week, students will come in, different students will come in, and then over time, the group of people that potentially have been in your class just grows and grows and grows. And over time, your following will grow. Yeah. And it's that consistency that they are going to be there that goes a long way with building that relationship.
For sure. And it holds them accountable too, right? Because they think, okay, Patrick's showing up every Sunday, so now I can show up every Sunday too. And it just gives them that security in that sense, right? Any other thing that comes to mind for you here?
Teaching a yoga class, there's a lot of different components that go into it. And I think, the sequence of the class is important. And then also any other things you add in, the music or essential oils or hands-on assist, all these different layers and tools that you have in your tool belt will only enhance what you're offering to your students over time. But whatever those other tools are, it's important to really hone them and make sure that they're enhancing the overall class. And you take the time to sequence, you take the time to make a playlist, you take the time to think about maybe essential oils if you're going to use them, so that every aspect and every tool that you use really makes the overall experience of the student wonderful.
Yeah. And tying into that, I think like when you can tie in those elements, right? When you plan out, I'm not one to do this too much, but like your musical sequence, if it's perfectly timed out and you know exactly when that note hits, everyone's going to be in Ardha Chandrasana or whatever, it's a really powerful experience for the students and they can feel that intention behind it. So I think, again, just being really intentional about why you're showing up to class, why you're choosing the things that you're choosing. You know, if you do a class around, I don't know, heart opening, and then use a specific essential oil that's related to the heart chakra, right? Like all those things really help to make the class an experience for your students, and they're going to remember that and seek you out because of those special touches that make your classes unique compared to other students or other teachers in the studio.
Yeah, definitely.
If I were to add one other thing, I would say to also attend classes at that studio that you're teaching at. So making yourself part of the community, I think, is a really important way for people to start to get familiar with you, especially if you're only teaching like one class a week at the studio when you start. The more that you go to classes and show up and take time after class to chat with people and compliment them on their yoga pants or whatever, right? Like once you make yourself part of that community and really work to cultivate that community with people, people will recognize you and go, oh wait, you teach on Saturdays too. Maybe I'll try to come to your class next time, right? And the more that you can attend workshops and other classes at the studio, and if your studio has events or different things that are happening on the weekends that you can attend, I definitely would encourage you to make yourself available for special events like that so that you can start to really cultivate a community and make friendships within the community, and that's going to help people recognize you, so the next time they see your class on the schedule or workshop that they're leading, they're going to go, oh, that's the person that I met in the class, maybe I'll check out their workshop. So
yeah, even going on that a little further, think of your class slot starting 15 minutes before the actual class time and ending 15 minutes after the class actually ends. And if you build that in so that when you show up to the studio 15 minutes early, you're available and there for your students, or you're just there in the community, and the same way after class to be there and available for questions or just interacting socially, it goes a really, really long way to building an in-studio following.
So any last tips you think coming up for you here?
Yeah, be yourself, be authentic, teach what you know, and don't try to teach something that you might have thought was cool in someone else's class unless you really understand it and experience it and can teach it in your own way. And by showing up and teaching what you know, whether you're a brand new teacher or an experienced teacher, the students will pick up on that, and your students, the ones that are connected to your teaching, will really want to follow you.
Yeah. And I think we almost touched on that in some of the other videos as well, but just that authenticity piece, right? Like not trying to be like your teacher or another teacher because you admire them. Maybe there are things about their classes that you can, kind of pick inspiration from, but the more that you really step into your own voice and to your own power as a teacher, the more you're going to be almost magnetic to those students that really will say, oh, I like Patrick's class because he does this thing, or oh, I like Lindsay's class because of the way she uses essential oils or whatever it is. Those little touches and just the language that you use, the way that you hold space for your students really goes a long way. So yeah, I think that's it for us, unless you have any other gems of knowledge that you want to share.
No, I think we covered the broad spectrum of some good solid tips that can help you right out of the gate to find the students that are searching for you.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope that you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more content like this from Patrick, myself, and the other teachers here at Yoga Renew, be sure to follow and subscribe to our channel. Namaste. Take care.